Women Who Own It podcast spotlights women business owners who are pioneers in their field, setting trends, blazing trails, and creating game-changing innovations. Brought to you by WBENC, the largest certifier of women-owned businesses in the U.S. and a leading advocate for women business owners and entrepreneurs. And me, Allison Maslin. I've been a business owner for the last 35 years. I'm the Wall Street Journal best-selling author of the book Scale or Fail. So join our bold community of women who built it, grew it, and own it. I'll see you on the show. Hi, everyone. So excited to be here today with you. My name is Allison Maslin. I am your host today, and we are celebrating business women, and I'm so honored to be here and a representative of WBENC, and we're about to interview such a brilliant woman. So I'm so excited to be bringing her to the stage here. Also, just to mention, we are diving into our second season of the podcast, Women Who Own It. And I've been blessed to be able to be the host of this show. So definitely check out our podcast. We interview incredible business leaders on the show, like our guest today. And a little bit about my background as we dive into this interview. I am the Wall Street Journal bestselling author of the book Scale or Fail. And I have built 10 companies over the last 37 years. I absolutely love everything about business. And my company, Pinnacle Global Network, we mentor business owners to grow and scale their companies all over the world. We've been doing that for the last 11 years, including many WBEs. So very proud of that. And this month, we are celebrating women business owners. But here's the thing, WBENC does this every single month. They celebrate us, which we are all so blessed. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our esteemed guest today. Janice Bryant Howroyd is the founder and chief executive officer of the ActOne Group, a multi-billion-dollar award-winning international workforce management and technology enterprise. She has been featured in Forbes magazine as one of America's richest self-made women, and Black Enterprise recognized her as the first Black woman to own and operate a billion-dollar company. So we're going to start out here with a little video.
Special guest speaker today, the first African-American woman to own a billion-dollar company.
She started the company in 1976 with just a few $100s. She's now ranked by Forbes as second wealthiest self-made African-American woman in America, behind only Ms. Oprah Winfrey.
ActOne is one of the largest staffing companies in the United States.
He's also the first African-American ever named by the Star Group as one of the 50 leading women entrepreneurs in the world.
Janice and I were recently both honored at the BET Honors Awards, and she is a true inspiration.
She spent almost 40 years helping others find work. She could fill a book with her words of wisdom.
Do you feel like the climate has changed for women, and especially for minority women?
Let's be clear, the climate has changed, but it's not sunny weather. This journey is not one that I consider having reached success. Rather, I believe I'm on the road of success.
So inspiring. Janice, we are so honored to have you here today. Welcome.
Oh, it's so great to be back with you. I was thinking about it. Our journey together is fueled by WBENC, and it's just a connection every day that's happening for women, and how we're able to work together, grow together, share thoughts and deeds together. So I am indeed honored to be a part of this WBENC connection.
Yeah, thank you so much, Janice. And I know everyone listening is going to be so inspired by your story and all of the wisdom that you have to offer. So I want to just start out because, my goodness, you started your company with $1,500 and $900 was a loan from your mother. So how did those early years shape your future in building a billion-dollar company?
Well, first of all, let me share with you my thought about numbers. They're only 9 digits and a zero. So it's about how you work it that you realize the ultimate that you reach. And Allison, in my household, the same principles that mom and dad used in terms of how we managed what we had are the principles I use today. Your intro video talked about being a multi-billion-dollar business. And while I'm very proud of that, we have to understand what that means. In an industry such as mine, a multi-billion-dollar business can mean anything, right? We manage plus or minus $3 billion of revenue a day. However, it's a much larger industry, so we're still not the biggest player. We are a woman-owned company, and when you look at that, we're probably bringing a lot of value, a lot more value to have gotten there. Mom and dad taught me that way of looking at things when I was growing up. We were a Bible-based community, and so a lot of our lives were spent in church, regardless of whether it was Sunday or not. I'm sure you relate to that in some ways, right? And I remember having a nickel to go to Sunday school with. And I haven't thought about this for years, by the way. I had a nickel to go to Sunday school with. And we would put money in the basket at church. And I watched the other kids put their pennies in. And so when it came my turn, I put my turn to put money in. I put the nickel in and I took out 3 pennies. And when I got home, I laid the 3 pennies down and my mom asked what that was about. And I said, oh, well, I left 2 cents in the basket this morning. And I watched my mom's face fall. And my mom was a very strong person who could give a loud message in a very soft voice. And she said, Janice, Janice, Janice. And wow, it's like it was yesterday, Allison. And I remember her severe disappointment that I brought 3 pennies back from church. And I said, but Mom, I still gave twice as much as anybody else. And she said, well, how do you figure that? I said, because everybody else put pennies in and I left 2. She said, it depends on how you look at how much you gave. You may have given twice as many pennies as any single other person did, but those people gave a lot more than you did if a penny was all they had. And that has framed how I have thought about where I am. So I don't know if it's humility on Uber or whatever. I'll just blame my mom like we always do about everything in life. But Mom did completely changed how I look at not just how you build a business, but how you build a life and how you equate what you give to it and where you are in the team, the humanity, or the family of that. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it sounds like you were really instilled with strong values and you've carried those values through to your life today. And it's clearly shaping your future.
Indeed. And I think over this last season of multi-pandemic crisis environment, values are what have made a big difference for a lot of people. I think that many people, I won't even say think, I'm not going to excuse it to that. I'll say dynamically, values have made a lot of difference to people in many ways, whether it is about how you value family and manage that in a work from home environment, or how you value decisions around morality and take the higher road when the lower road would get you more immediately. It can go on and on as we list how we value things. I think at the end of it, It's understanding who we are in this big world. How you look at history now, more importantly, many of us for the last 20 odd years have had the luxury of leaving history out of how we equate our present and build for our future. This is not the first time the world has been in pandemic, albeit we're a more populated world, and it may be the first time we're all facing the same challenges at the same time and solving for the same solutions at the same time. But instead of allowing that to overwhelm us, we have to go back to our core values and say, this is also the first time we've all collectively wanted the same outcome and have agreed that we're going to use some of the same protocols to get there. And I think that merits being, attended to.
Wow, I love that. I mean, there's so much insight in what you shared right now. And I definitely can see, how the decisions we make now during this time definitely will impact how companies or the communities see us in the future, or our employees as well. So,
well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I've got to say this. Oftentimes when I'm in conversation, and you know this because you and I have enjoyed conversation, I think a lot, right? We've really enjoyed our conversation. I have to say this. One of the things that has really been beautiful for me, not just profitable, but beautiful for me over this last year, has been seeing how all the many executives and team members across the ActOne group have come together. Think about this. We're operating in over 30 countries, 19 of them with brick and mortar. We at any given day, there are over 20 languages spoken just by our own employees. And yet we all are commonly attracted and invested in serving our mission. And I say that because when you talk about values, the culture of the people in this organization has proven itself over and over again. Within 48 hours, everybody was working from home. Thankfully, we are a virtually successful company, so many were doing that before. But when you look across over 2,000 employees across the globe, and everybody within 48 hours is told you're not going back to the office, we got to keep everybody safe. And they do it transparently and without glitch. They do it enthusiastically. They're supporting each other in ways that I can't even begin to enumerate on. The culture of a company really helps people to live their own values collectively with others. And we've got incredible people in the ActOne group who are doing that and doing that dynamically. Customers are speaking about it. Employees are sharing innovative solutions aggressively to the marketplace, yet very gently with each other. These are individual values that have come into this organization to help make us a better culture.
I love that. I'm sure that's a big secret to your success, and we'll get into
really smart people.
Yes, but you attracted them. Let's be clear on that. So what has been the biggest challenge or obstacle that you've had to overcome to move from that early entrepreneur to this beautiful enterprise that you have?
And I think you know a little bit of that answer from our previous conversations. Truly, I thank you for the opportunity to just lean in on it a little deeper, because I see and I have people approaching me from that place in their lives as well. So candidly sharing with you, and I've shared this publicly before, getting over myself has been my biggest obstacle. Now, when you look at me, well, not necessarily when you look at me, because I'm really young and hot and, happening on appearance, right? Say yes, Allison.
Absolutely.
Okay. but there's some age and rage that got me here. Let me just share with you that experience. And so the biggest thing for me has been getting over myself and those things that I brought into my professional life that were legitimately culled by my growing up and by the experiences I have had around sexism, racism, any kind of ism you name, and me not allowing that to define not just me, because I didn't have a problem ever. Once I left Tarboro, North Carolina, my parents' home, I never had the problem of defining who I am. I did have a challenge of defining how the I am fit into the bigger world, and being present to conversations that I wasn't present to the real solutioning, or bringing thought, ideas, and innovation to solutions that not necessarily weren't gifted to me, but that we didn't reap the benefit and value of that as a business, pure and simple. All of these things have occurred along the journey that I could individually speak to and legitimately appear to be challenges that were big enough to mention. At the end of it, and this is why I love WBENC so much, the biggest thing I've had to overcome is, and I framed it this way earlier this year, forgiving myself for being Black, female, and smart at the same time. Is it any wonder I love WBENC so much that when I walk into a virtual meeting, or before 2019 into a room, and Pam Eason is there, and I get this great big old hug, and Pam has this ability to be a mom, a sister, and a kid all rolled into one, and do it toward everybody's win. Her team, who are listening to every little thing you say, to ensure that it's an environment of inclusiveness and support, an environment where we meet some of the most incredible people ever. I've met many of my suppliers to my program through WBENC activities and initiatives. As a matter of fact, during this staffing series, we've had lots of conversation with people who I've met through WBENC. Nina Vaca just completed a conversation with Stacey Haberger, who is a force on her own. I'm just so blessed to have Stacey as a leader in our organization. And Nina's celebrating an anniversary for Pinnacle. Well, I met Nina through WBENC. And then Anne, oh my God, Anne, who is the CEO and founder of AMCUS. Not only did I meet a friend in Anne, I met one of the greatest business partners ever, whose culture of delivery to the marketplace is simply immaculate. What I'm really saying is I've met incredible women, but I've also met business opportunity to grow. And none is better example than that relationship with Anne at AMCUS for me.
Yes, and all the women that you mentioned are tremendous women business leaders. We've had them all on the Women Who Own It show as well. I've had the honor to meet them. So Janice, was there ever a time that you thought in your business years, like, oh my gosh, maybe we won't make it? Or did you always have that inner belief that, we've got this, we can handle
it? With greatest humility possible, I'm trying to invoke my Maya Angelou spirit here. Maya said that, humility does not mean that you dishonor your strength, right? I'm power quoting her. I have to tell you, I've never doubted that we could be successful. Now, to a large part, Allison, that's fueled by the type of parents I had and the time in our country's history that I grew up in, where nothing was ever given easily. And folk from my community say, people like us, we got to do twice as much to get half as far. So I came ready to the world that I would be equipped to do stuff. I even teach today, you have everything you need to be everything you need to be. And then we go into hour-long discussions about what that means. But for right now, I have to tell you, I've never once doubted that I could achieve what I set out to do, because I framed my goals around principles and values that I could be comfortably aggressive about and sustainably enduring about. The thing that's important for me is that also I live and work from a place of faith. I don't know if you can see my t-shirt here.
I can.
You know,
I noticed that right off the bat.
Read it, girl.
That
read it.
is so powerful. Let me look closely here. Let me see it again.
Okay.
So it says,
Okay, here you
it
go.
says, faith does not make things easy, but it makes them possible.
Yeah.
I love it.
So understand how I treat faith, and this will better answer your question about if I ever thought I could do it or doubted I could do it. Number one, years ago, I just shared this a couple of days ago with someone. I come from a Southern gospel background, right? And one of the things that I really loved was those old vinyl albums. And I have so many of them in my attic now. One of them was by Andre Crouch. And Andre Crouch is a gospel minister and musician. You're nodding like you know Andre Crouch's music.
I do.
Yeah. And so on one of his songs, it's the Take Me Back album. I was just sharing this recently, Allison. He introduces a piece and he speaks about faith. And he teaches us in that quick moment that, religion is a search for God. Faith is a relationship with God. I grew up in a home where mom and dad taught us two things that have stayed with me and have been more present today than ever. One thing they taught us is that if you choose Christianity as the family of faith you belong to, then you have to understand it is one with arms reached out, not arms circled in. There is always room for everybody else's belief system and everybody else's place where they are in their faith journey. The second thing that they taught me that has really stayed with me is that when you think about faith, it's taught us from our Bible that faith without works is dead. It's one thing to say you believe something. It's quite a higher thing to say you be living it, And the difference between believing and be living is how you evidence your faith. And so I've just kept that present to me, and call me Pollyanna, call me naive, call me anything, but call me if you need work. I do believe that it was the faith foundation that isn't simply that ideological thing that we're taught or that we seek to journey from. It's the very practical things that teach us how we prevail. At the beginning of COVID, I shared with my team something that I see other people are repeating now. And so I love that they're hashtagging it. But what we said, Allison, simply was what I encourage my team is, we don't know what's happening in front of us in terms of this virus, but we know who we are in this pandemic. And the one thing we commit ourselves to is we're not just going through this, we're growing through this, And when we've seen in times of war that many companies have grown or many points of legislation have grown, then why can't we, in the time of this virus war, this financial war, this social justice war, why can't we use this as an opportunity, not simply to go through it, but grow through it? My mom and dad didn't believe in surviving. They believed in thriving. I was in university before I realized that by US standards, we were poor. I thought we were some of the richest people in the world. And in effect, we were, it just wasn't with money.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, you said so many things. I loved be living. That's a powerful, I'm going to definitely borrow that if that's okay. That's very powerful. But I do believe that in talking to so many business owners over the years, that when you have that level of faith, instead of saying, I'm going to try to make this work, but you are really like, this is happening.
Well, you can't try to do anything. Okay, let's just be realistic. Try is a very interesting word. I put it at the same level of attention demand that I put the word if, because I'm an avid fan of Rudyard Kipling's If. Okay, I just make it better gender inclusive. So I encourage everybody to go look up Rudyard Kipling's If, the poem If. However, let's talk about the 3-letter word, try, okay? Now I've got a glass here. And if you ask me, Janice, try to take a sip. If I stay like this, you'll say, there was no effort, there was no try. If I do this, I didn't try to do it, I did it. And I believe in a world that you do it or you don't. Your journey between not doing it and doing it is a compound investment, and it can oftentimes take a village to raise it. But we gotta leave try out. I've seen the word try become an excuse rather than a reason. I've seen where people say they tried to find a woman-owned business and they couldn't, or they tried to work with that lady and they couldn't, or she tried, but she didn't, you know? And so try is an offensive word to me. I appreciate it as a placeholder in the English language, but in the practicality of business, we do it or we don't, and therefrom we are paid, whether we are paid financially, whether we are paid spiritually, or whether we are paying it forward. The word try does not deliver in the world of business. We do or we don't, and that's why it's important for us to do it together. We really we lessen the odds that we achieve.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. I am right on the same plane with you 100%. And especially during this time and everything we're going through, we got to be all in. So, so what do you feel are, I mean, speaking of try, but what do you feel are the biggest mistakes that business owners make that keep them from making that big leap?
Well, one mistake I'm not going to make in answering that is to suggest that these are the biggest, because I do believe that in a world that is so well supported by technology, virtuosity, and I think also an amalgam of cultures differently than ever before. I mean, you think about it, a business can be born in this minute and overnight be a global business. That was not simply possible when I was growing up. When I started my business, I remember when I first got my fax machine, I told you, I think I felt like Judy Jetson, you know, like, wow, this is, you know, this is the world gone mad. I can actually do that. I don't need the US Post Office to wait for it to get there, you know, to enact a contract. And look at where we are right now. And so I think that leads me to one of the things that I would, rather than say, you know, the errors that companies make, or rather some things to look out for. But the reason I do say I'm not going to fall into the trap of answering it in just that way is because there are so many ways to be in business today. And there are predicates and there are outcomes of those in many different ways. Here are some things to look out for, though. Just as I'm talking about technology to you, I think you have to be very cognizant that no matter what business you're in a global community for it. If you make buttons, you are competing with people across from wherever you are who also make buttons and can get them to market as quickly as you can. If you don't believe it, look at how many people are using Amazon and other forms since COVID who never did before. But more dynamically in that is not just the getting it to market, it is the respect for the regulations and the laws that govern where you do business, and not just where you do it from, but where you do it to. You've really got to be cognizant of that. On a more holistic measure, I would say something you have to look out for is be true to why you start a business and why you stay in business. All of the reasons you started that business can be valid and get you to the point of profit you wish. How you stay in business is no longer just about you. It's about the many people who are in business with you. For me, that means that there is a first level respect that every single employee in my organization is more important than I am to that moment. It also means that your clients, however you define them, aren't just people who pay your bills, but they become your laboratory for how you learn to innovate and deliver better to your marketplace. We do some of the best tech and solutions aggregation in our industry. I don't just think it, I know it at ActOne Group. And earlier today, we being, as I mentioned, had Stacey Haberger from our organization on board. Many people see Stacey as this woman who has put together global programs through her sales and development organization within the ActOne Group, but she also happens to be one of the greatest innovators in the company. You've got to respect people for their abilities and understand that just as your company evolves, so will your people, and so must your people. And it's not always a matter of how financially strong you're able to deliver them a platform for innovation. I think oftentimes it's more about the freedom of space they have to solve out loud without issue or punishment. Before COVID, if you walked into any of our buildings, you would see on our walls, and often you see it in our product and our content, FEET, FEET, freedom to innovate, excellence in delivery, because everything matters. Invest the time to understand. That's the foundation that we walk from at ActOne Group. And I think it's something that I would encourage all businesses to adopt.
I love that.
You're kind of like not saying anything else.
No, I'm taking this all in. Like I'm totally taking this in. You really are empowering your team, it sounds like, to be leaders, to be problem solvers. Like they are, vested.
Yeah, but it's bigger and it's deeper than that, because people say that to the point of exhaustion. I mean, companies pay really great money to get people to come in and create marketing campaigns or branding campaigns. And that's not what I'm talking about here. And people talk about empowerment, and it means, one thing to one and another to another. What I'm talking about when I say feet, you've got to give people the room to err toward a greater success. And organizations can say, we empower you in this way or that. We give you the advantage of this technology or this tutorial or this budget. But if you can give all of that to someone, if you don't give them the power to err toward success. I mean, when you look at the Bell Labs, a lot of mistakes happened before we brought light to a globe, literally and figuratively. And so that's what I'm talking about. You say you're empowering people by the stuff you give them, the money, the technology, but you truly empower people when you give them the freedom to innovate. And freedom means that they are not manacled by their own era toward solutioning.
Wow, that really is powerful. And you don't hear that, Janice, giving them room to be so innovative that they may fall or make mistakes, because, the creativity and the lessons come out of that. So, wow, that is really
and when you have that freedom within your organization, let's take it to 102. When you have that freedom within your organization, the errors occur in a lab environment. They occur in your own organization. They're not then happening once you're out there delivering to a customer. Once you're out there, where now it not simply impacts whether or not you get paid or you get sued, it impacts whether you have the ability to grow your organization so that everybody invested in it has an opportunity to grow with you. Am I making sense to you?
Yeah, they have the room to work out the kinks and just take it to that next level before you're taking it to the market. So that's definitely putting you ahead.
And their careers are not at threat for having a great idea that is not a solid business.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine you would attract amazing leaders, because who doesn't want that kind of freedom to be able to use that creativity. And you do not see that very often in the corporate environment. So hats off to you on that.
Well, we practice something in the ActOne group called Real Love. And I really can't say that I'm the author of that because that's hashtagged out for us. My son, Brett Howroyd, who leads our ActOne staffing organization, he leads all of our staffing groups. Brett Howroyd came up with that because he wanted an environment where our culture is to be very supportive of each other. And the tenure of our team members will teach you very quickly that people are here by choice, because we've been through several economic circumstances over the growth of my company. And we've got people who are continuing to be a part of this. We've got people, whether it's Stacy, Kim, David, Peter, I could go on, Ron and Brian and T and, Shane and Richard. I use these names as an example for you because these are people who have invested their full careers in growing the companies that we love and serve under the ActOne group. And Brett innovated this around the staffing solutions, and then we adopted it into ActOne and other organizations. Because he wanted an environment where people could speak up freely as long as we were supporting each other. And so we termed it out as real love. And people can come to the table with real love conversations amongst each other. Let me tell you something. Playing in on real love, right, I would say within 3 months in front of COVID, we came up with protocols that I can tell you with data supported evidence mattered in how we've been able to grow and sustain our business through COVID. That's how powerful it is. It's not this big idea. It's also a very tactical thing to do.
And I would imagine brings incredible trust amongst your people. And
Brian likes to say, Brian Clark, who leads an international group for us, loves at ActOne, loves to say, well, I look at real love like this. Don't just say it out at the water cooler, say it at the table. If you can't say it at the table, then you shouldn't be discussing it at the water cooler. Everybody's got to be, and we're talking a lot about this. This might be really important to you, Allison, for some reason I'm not getting, but do you realize we've been talking over 7 minutes about the power of giving people the freedom to innovate without the threat?
Well, it's just so rare.
Yeah,
it's just so rare. And I do think because business owners, especially earlier stage, we work so hard to build our business and they're so afraid of making a mistake because, they don't want to lose a customer or they're having a tough cash flow challenge. So I think
that's so disrespectful to a client to suggest that a client is not going to hear you when you say, I want to innovate along this solution area with you. And you take a scientific approach to how you mitigate those risks. Most clients, and especially I will tell anybody who is an entrepreneur, most clients today are ambitious for you to bring new thought around how they solve for new economies. And so if you're scientific in recognizing with them where the risks are and mitigating to that, they can work with you there. Nobody's going to break regulation and nobody's going to put anybody's health at risk. That's not what we're talking about. But when we're talking about solving forward with idea or with pilot product, many companies, the acquisitions and merger world is robust right now because companies are looking for new ways and new avenues of revenue stream. So I think if you've got a valued customer and you're forward about it, they are going to be ambitious to hear you. And then we also, as entrepreneurs, have to understand that no means not now.
Right.
No means not now. It may not have a lot to do with your idea. It may have more to do with an organization's readiness. But how you present it really is remembered. We said often in meetings through COVID, those clients who aren't buying right now, they're going to remember you post-COVID that you stopped calling when they stopped needing.
Wow.
You know, so I just think, you know, a lot of what we're talking about is common sense. And while common sense isn't that common anymore, I don't see that as a negative. I see it as, you think about it. We go to work, most of us go to work every day on a Zoom or a Teams or whatever platform we're using with people whose first languages are not our own, with people whose regulatory disciplines are not those that hit us immediately or local to where we're working from. And we're also going on calls with people who, even if they share our same regulatory concerns or our language, are not having our same circumstances. How we measure common sense has to be reimagined, has to be rethought, because what we meant by common sense in a local economy or a local community is very different now that we all create virtual communities. There's opportunity in everything when we don't put limits around how we think.
That's beautiful. Love it. Everything that you said, solving forward, fantastic. If you had to give 1 to 2 growth strategies, Janice, to business owners that are listening or that are going to listen to this recording later on how to scale their business, what would you share?
First thing I would share is step back and understand why you want to scale your business. Growth has many definitions, and they each seed back to where you are. In our company, we say when you're green, you grow. When you're ripe, you rot. A business that is rotting can still get bigger, but not necessarily be growing. So you really have got to step back and understand, how am I identifying growth, and does scaling fit well at this time for that? Another bit of advice I would give is, what is the impact of scaling to the current teams I have in place? We get it. Technology truly is a part of everybody's work life. Technology leveled the playing field for me. When companies saw me as a woman, as a minority, as a local business, they framed what opportunity I would have in their organization that would limit me if I were not that gal who got out there and said, let's talk a little bit more about that, and said it over and over again until they were prepared for the conversation. But people still remain at the back and the front of technology.
So I have another scale tip for you based on the Scale It method that we talked about in the last episode. The acronym for SCALE. The S in SCALE is for strategic vision, and that's where everything starts. But when you started your business, you probably had a different vision than you may have now as your business has evolved and as it's grown. And Einstein said that imagination is the preview of what is to come. And I love that, because as a business owner, you are a visionary and you get to tap into that creativity. And your vision can be as big as you want it to be. But we get so mired in the day-to-day and the to-do lists and fires and different things that go on in the business that sometimes we get pulled away from the vision. So it's important to take time during your week to reconnect with that vision as much as you can. One thing that I do is I actually mark out 2 times during my week, on a Thursday and a Sunday, where I call my thinking time. And I actually have a journal and a pen, and I am thinking about the vision and where are we going with the company, and reconnecting with my why. And by doing that, I stay connected to it. Then I can continually communicate that with my team to raise their vibe up, connect them with the vision, make sure the whole company, based on the direction that we're going and the decisions that we make, are always connected to that big picture and that strategic vision. So hopefully this helps you take some time, get into your imagination, and take your big strategic vision as far as you want to go.
And when we forget that, sometimes we can scale forward around the opportunity without understanding the impact to our own teams. So we've got to be thoughtful to that. I'm not talking about how many more hours somebody has to work, although that has to be considered depending on how you hire them. Yes. I'm also talking about how the business value proposition changes for them, how prepared you are for all of the things we just talked about in their readiness to meet that scale up. And you also have got to be this is the third thing, Allison, I think you've got to be very mindful that you understand not just your customers, but your customers' marketplace. Where are they in their marketplace? What are their challenges? So often when an entrepreneur, I've seen, at least in my experience, you've grown 10 businesses and you continue to be an innovator in this space as well. And as she wrote to me, you tell me if I'm on track. I've seen so many examples of entrepreneurs wanting to scale their business forward, and they understand their business. They understand a client, but they've not got the capacity to understand the marketplace of the client. And the marketplace of the client can have a more resounding and immediately impactful moment to your success than some of those very dynamics you studied about yourself that you thought were so foundational. Do I make sense? Is that,
yeah.
I mean, this is the third time I'm asking your validation.
Yeah, no,
you're that woman.
Well, thank you for that. You have to understand who you're speaking to, what is their ecosystem, what is their language, what is their pain, to determine, can you solve that pain, and are you prepared on a much bigger scale? So,
and when you're talking about scaling, you're talking about working within legal and regulatory environments that are not those you grew from. You better understand what the law says about privacy in Germany if you're going to scale a product or a service in Germany. You've also got to understand that there may be one Europe, but it is not the United Countries of Europe, and that they are in a point of evolution. I mean, everybody spoke to some degree about Brexit when it was in the first days of discussion. But if you're doing business and you're scaling into Europe, you had better known about it before it was on the news, And so I'm saying you really have to be prepared to have people teamed as a part of your organization who are ambitious and talented and supported. ATS, ambitious, talented, and supported, to being able to help you understand where you're scaling to, not just what you're scaling from. That is critical for business owners to understand. One error in any myriad of ways can create a resounding interruption to your business, and importantly, your client's business, who is trusting you to be aware of these things. If you want to stay home and watch local news on TV and get a game of tennis or golf in, if you're fortunate enough to have daylight at the end of your business day, scaling your business can't be something you're leading. You have to have talented people who are doing that for you. That would be my last bit of advice. Know the realistic investment you're prepared to make, not just of your resources, but of yourself. And if you're not prepared to continue to grow, to learn, to be on the scene in every area that impacts your scalability, then you need to get out of the way and pay somebody else to do that well for you, because you're putting people on your own team at risk when you don't make a great decision, not just a good decision. Scale requires greatness. You can build a local business being really good, and do well.
That is so good. That I'm going to make sure that every business owner I know listens to what you just said. That was very powerful. And I would imagine too, I mean, it's regulations, but it's also the culture too, you know, I mean, the way we might do things here, or you're used to doing business within your community and you're in other parts of the world.
And culture isn't just about how people feel and how they communicate and relate to each other in that way. It's also about how you build out the protocols and the platforms for scaling your business. I'll tell you something really quick that maybe gets the message better across than this Southern girl can, okay? Although he's a Southern guy I'm going to talk about. I had the blessing to gain as a friend during his life, Jack Shoemaker. Jack Shoemaker at one point was the second largest stockholder in Walmart, second to the Walton family. And Jack reached out to me. We won't go into detail about how he found out about me, although it blew my mind because I thought it was more about how smart he was. And he said, no, it's about how smart you are. But Jack and his whole family are just incredibly wonderful people who work from what we talked about earlier, values. At the point that I met with Jack around maybe the fourth or fifth time, he shared with me that when Walmart went to Australia, they went there bringing what was successful in America. We spoke kind of the same language and we understood each other's currencies, and, you know, our lifestyles and our culture seemed pretty similar. But I got to tell you something. My Walmart sprang from the lessons learned in Australia, because what Walmart learned about understanding, no matter how big a company you are, you got to understand what the local culture demands of you, was one of the reasons why they were able to be one of the first in line when we had all the natural disasters happen in Louisiana. They were able to get stuff to places, but not just getting stuff to places around supply chain. They got the right stuff. Walmart knows that if you come to my community in Tarboro, North Carolina, people like blue and red Kool-Aid, you know, and the other stuff is going to sit on the shelf. So when we talk about cultures, we're not just talking about how people feel about each other. We're also talking about how we commerce with each other. And businesses have a responsibility to know this, especially businesses who have shareholder investment at present. And I get this. I'm telling you, one of the things I'm so excited about is to be on the board for a new SPAC called Athena. And I'm going to be joining some incredible women along under the management of Phyllis and Isabel on Friday. We're going to ring the bell at the New York Stock Exchange. So I want everybody to be paying attention at 9 o'clock Eastern, which I will be virtually ringing the bell at 6 o'clock a.m. from California on our new SPAC, Athena. And our SPAC is the first all-woman SPAC, and we are delivering women-owned businesses opportunities to scale up and to build bigger and stronger value to our community. So I just had to share that because, again, all of this stuff is just so incredible to me that I'm able to engage in a way on a global level because of my relationship to WBENC and the incredible women, businesses, and organizations that I've been able to meet and network with through the incredible enterprise that Pam Eason leads.
Oh, wow. That is so exciting. So exciting. And I can't wait to see that and hear all about it. And so speaking of Pam Eason and how amazing.
Let me just say one more thing. Nina Vaca's going to be joining me. She's going to be ringing the bell from Texas. I'll be ringing the bell from LA. I'm talking about WBENC. We met each other through WBENC, you know, so it's like a big day for us, but it's in kudos to our relationship to WBENC. You were going to talk about Pam Eason, though. I'll be quiet for that.
That's okay. I was going to talk about, I was just going to segue because I want to talk a little bit about WBENC because some people that see this might not be certified yet, women-owned businesses. And, you know, I'm so passionate about WBENC and it's been transformational for myself and my own company in the last several years. But how have you utilized or leveraged your WBENC certification as a support for your business? I'm sure there's many ways, but we'd just love to hear a few of those.
Okay, so I don't know what your audience can see, but I'm sitting in one of my offices in my Peninsula home. And behind me is a picture of my husband, Bernie Howroyd. One of the greatest gifts of my life was to have this Yorkshireman meet me and decide that I was the most beautiful woman he'd ever met. I say that in the face of so many other things I could say about my husband, because I didn't feel very beautiful. I'm not just talking about the physical thing, okay? When I grew up, Black wasn't beautiful, okay? James Brown taught us. He said, say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud, right? Black is beautiful. I was a part of that movement, said it a lot longer than I believed it. That's what my culture and my community had, done to me. I had to get re-educated about myself. Another re-education occurred for me when I met Bernie. I had left, and he helped me with that. So fast forward into our relationship, I had left a WBENC a conference back in the day when it was one of the biggest conferences any hotel could have, and everybody wanted WBENC to come to town. And I left that conference and I shared with him that I had met with several opportunities, but I wasn't sure that as a Black woman, I was going to be successful in WBENC, And he sat down and we had a beautiful conversation. You got to understand that Bernie was the love of my life for over 40 years and continues to be, even though he transitioned in August of this year. Bernie had Alzheimer's, and we were blessed that we were all at home with him and he never had to suffer through COVID. We were also blessed that he did not, as they tell us, oftentimes a person's personality alters and they go to the opposite in Alzheimer's. Contrarily, Bernie became one of the happiest people and he expressed that through his energy. Well, it was that guy long before Alzheimer's became evident. And I left this WBENC conference who told me when I was expressing, I don't know how successful I'm going to be as a Black woman. He said, why don't you just find out, And we talked together and I decided what strategy I would take to utilizing what WBENC had as available to me as a business owner. And I have to tell you, once I did that, I started to meet different people in corporations. I started to learn from women and men, he's for she's, who are strong and active in WBENC. The lessons I learned as a business person are dynamically one of the things that I have gained the most from WBENC and been able to use in how I manage forward my own business. You asked for a couple, I'll give you two. The other way I've used my WBENC certification is to be an example for other women so they become a part of the WBENC network. And I referenced this earlier. I'm going to lean a little hard on it because it's such a dynamic case study. The relationship that ActOne Group has with AMCUS is one of the greatest examples of how to use a WBENC connection. AMCUS is one of the highest performing staffing companies in the ActOne Group offering to clients, and shared strategies for being successful, and how her relationship with us has been one of the reasons she's been able to double her business during COVID. What did I talk about? Grow through it, don't just go through it. Being able to create those kinds of successes that actually becomes case studies for women in business, I think it's the gift of WBENC. And, on my iPad, I have two things. I have a picture of my husband and I have these words. They say, ask, and it shall be given. And it says, seek and I will find, knock and it is open to me. That's what WBENC does. If you ask at WBENC, legitimately ask without frivolity, WBENC gives. If you seek through WBENC, WBENC helps you find. And if you knock, and you have to interpret the word knock, not just knocking down walls, but doing the work. If you do the work, it's revealed for you. And it's all wrapped up in a sisterhood that includes he's for she's. I mean, think about it. WBENC was outstanding in forming relationships with other NGOs like NMSDC and NGLCC, WPO, kudos to Marsha Firestone. You know, I mean, Pam's just been so innovative in how she's not just looking at lifting up the women who are part of her organization through WBENC, but she's also working with other organizations. Hey guys, we can do this all together. I can't say enough about Pam Eason, and she comes from a corporate world. She's not just bringing great ideology, she's bringing pragmatic understanding to the business hurdles that women face. She grew up lifting up corporate programs, and the gift she brings to WBENC is just immaculate. I mean, I get gushy. So, you know, when you ask me, you gotta be ready to hear.
This is one of the most powerful interviews that I've been a part of. I'm just being really straight with you. I'm going to go back and listen because there's so much wisdom that you have shared. And, you know, I just want to say, Janice, because we're going to wrap this up now as we're coming to the top of the hour.
Well, before you say it, I got to hug you out and get my hustle on then. I got to encourage everybody that you've heard me talk about our staffing companies in the ActOne group, and most people know about the ActOne solutions. I gotta tell you that if you ask me, Janice, you've been doing this for a long time, what excites you most? 1, 2, 3. 1, the people in the organization at the ActOne group who are going to continue this long past JBH. 2, the service and innovation we bring not just to technology, but to programs and protocols that influence globally. That wowed me when I can go to MSD UK, and I'm not talking about our client Merck here, I'm talking about Mayank Shah, who's heading MSD UK, and go there and find out that something I said hit somebody, or walk into a store in London and have a kid run up to me and say, hey, we studied you in my business class, the first Black woman to, you know, I'm like, okay, do I need a guard now? You know, and 3, the ability to hit what we believe and lived from day one. The worker is the center of our universe. In our offices, that translates into candidate legally, but in our social justice and in our economic justice campaigns, it's about every candidate being the center of our universe, every worker looking for work. And we manifested that to its highest level. Yes, all's well. Yes, Apple One. We manifested that with all STEM connections. So I'm just asking everybody to check out Apple One, All's Well, and All STEM connections. At All STEM, we are bringing a diverse and a fully inclusive slate of candidates to the talent community who are STEM work ready. I had to share that with you, Allison, because for me, that is the jewel in my crown.
Wow, and you absolutely, I'm so happy that you did share that, and so much to be proud of. And what I want to say, Janice, is that, and here we are in International Women's Month, is that what you have done and continue to do, what it does is it holds open the door for so many women that see you to say, wow, she's done it. I can do it too. So
I hope it's saying she's doing it. I ain't through yet.
No,
Listen,
you're doing it.
right. Life ain't been no bed of roses, they say in my community. You know, those beautiful, and I love flowers. Yours are gorgeous. I got them behind me. It ain't been a bed of roses, okay? Roses come with thorns, and the most beautiful roses have the sharpest thorns. And so I pray that if I example anything for anybody, it's that you can smile in front of a lot of pain, a lot of injustice, a lot of hurdles, and not wear your smile as a mask. Wear it as an honor. You know, like, honestly, Allison, right down the hall from here, I got 4 different crowns, 4 different tiaras sitting on my fireplace. And they have names, and they bear the names of the women who've been important in my life. One is named Madam C.J. Walker, who up from slavery started the first $1 million company of a woman in the U.S., not a Black woman, although she was a Black slave, but of any woman who, through her grit and her understanding of how she could serve, started a company. Okay. And by the way, she saved me because she did a lot with that straightening comb too. One is named Elretha. That is my mother's name. I love my mom and honor her for what she has taught me about business out loud. But the greatest gift my mother gave my siblings and me was that she exampled for us how a woman should be loved, by having a husband who saw her not just as a helpmate, but as a leader in his journey to be a better man. She is an immaculate perfection in how to live life, you know? And then I got 2 others who got names too, that with more time, I'll share with you about them. By the way, if you want to have a conversation about my crowns, I'm happy to have it with you. But yeah, I got those 4 crowns and they got names. And I pray that I add a few more crowns to that fireplace. One is named Kay, my daughter Catherine, for my daughter Catherine, who has been one of my greatest teachers of my life. Yeah. And then that last one has a man's name on it. So anyway.
I love it. Well, you've earned every crown, and I'm sure there's many more ahead. And I've got some work to get some crowns myself. So thank you so much for this time with me today, and for everybody. I'm sure that they are sending their gratitude energy to you right now. Thank you to WBENC to making this possible. And just such sincere.
Let's just leave with this, Allison. Okay. The Negro National Anthem words. I'll start it. You can find it online. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies, and let us march on till victory is won. I think WBENC can adopt that as, you know, our anthem as well. It fits for a lot of us. And it's been a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you. I look forward to us being together again. God bless.
Well, there you have it, everybody. That is so profound. Thank you, Janice. Thank you, WBENC. Until next time. Bye, everybody. Thank you.